Okay, and Facebook is just streaming us over, and now we'll have that 18-second delay that I warned you about.
Sounds good.
And I'm logging in on my second screen so I can get all our questions. Hooray! And we are live. Welcome, mighty mystery fans. I'm your on-air host, Sarah DeVello, and I am thrilled to be hosting Micah Nemerever, author of These Violent Delights, out today and getting amazing buzz. Micah, welcome to A Mighty Blaze. Tell us about your book.
Oh, thank you. It's sorry, nervous. It's
That's okay. We're
yeah,
all nervous here.
yeah. It's sort of a combination coming of age story and psychological novel with some thriller elements. It's sort of it's about it's about adolescent obsessive love that is kind of vectored through wanting to become somebody as much as you
Mm.
love them. So it's I always talk about the duality of wanting and wanting to be, and how that's a major aspect of the novel. It's from the point of view of Paul Fleischer, who is it's the 70s in Pittsburgh, and he's kind of a working class kid, first generation college student. His family has been through pretty recent trauma,
Mm.
and so he's kind of processing that and feeling kind of directionless, and so he falls in love with a boy named Julian Fromm, who is very different from him. He's like from kind of a posh background, and he's not shy. He's extroverted and sort of easily articulate, very charismatic. And so Paul sort of idolizes him as well as
Mm.
being in love with him. And it just, they form this dynamic that is sort of complicated and has a lot of weird power dynamics. And it, like, this mutual obsession leads to disaster. Um, yeah.
Well, I am so excited to host you. I'm so excited to read this book. And I just want to welcome all of our friends who are watching on Facebook. Welcome, everybody. Tell us where you are logging on from. Tell us where you're watching from today. I love to know. And I will be monitoring all those comments right here on my second screen because I'm fancy that way. Catherine is watching. Gail says hi again. Hi, Gail. Welcome back. Gail's a top community member. She says, all friends here. This is a safe space. Yay, Gail. I feel the same way. Totally. Catherine says, Mazel Tov, Micah. Kristen says, woo, Micah. Waters says, hello from Oklahoma. Catherine says, from NYC. So we have everybody from NYC to Oklahoma. I know we've got some Massachusetts watchers in the audience. Welcome, everybody. So if you've never been here before, this is how it works. If you've been here before, you know how it works. This is your time with our featured author. So this is your time with Micah to ask him anything you want about his writing process, his book, his characters, how, his path to publication, whatever you want. This is your time with Micah. I am merely the conduit. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and type them right in the questions and I'll get them right over to Micah. Barbara saying hello. Welcome, Barbara. Caroline saying, yay, Micah. You're getting so much love and support, Micah. Yay. So get your questions going. Type them right in the comments. And while you're thinking of them, because I know it always takes me a minute, I'm going to ask Micah some questions of my own. So Micah, how long did it take you to write this book?
It depends where you count from. I came up with the characters in like early 2011, and I started writing these little fragments with them, thinking it was going to turn into a book eventually. And then in about 2013, I looked at the fragments I had, and I was like, I love these characters. I love this basic idea. These have got to go. So I threw it all out and started from scratch. And so it's I like to count from 2013 because then it makes it sound like I didn't spend quite as long writing a book. So I started in 2013, finished the first draft 2016, and then it took another like 18 months to revise and get it ready to send out to agents. So Yeah.
Hey, I think that sells fast. Greetings from writing book number 2. I'm 6 years in and I'm still not done. So there is no shame in the long
Yeah.
book game.
Oh yeah.
And I think that a book actually that takes longer has, a more complex, like you can feel that when a book has been given that extra time that it needs to come to fruition, to be lovingly
Yeah.
consciously cultivated and developed. So I love that you started thinking about it in 2011, started writing in 2013, well, after scrapping it and redoing it. That's amazing. I love that. I love that. So before we go any further, I have to share just a few words of your incredible praise, because Micah, your book is really getting a lot of buzz. So O Magazine saying Nemerever's darkly shrewd debut exists in that hazy liminal space between desire and obsession. Ooh, yum. Where the vagaries of a relationship come shaded with the constant threat of cruelty. Wow, amazing rave review from O Magazine, because that is such a complicated and multi-textured, delicate needle to thread. So wow, amazing that you were able to do that. The Philadelphia Inquirer raving, it's only a matter of time before things start to explode in this enthralling, unpredictable thriller. That is absolutely amazing. Book Page saying few novelists make an impression as quickly and effectively as Micah Nemerever does in his stirring debut, an explosively erotic and erudite thriller. Okay, I have to pause on that because you don't hear erotic and erudite in the same sentence very often. What an incredible accomplishment. Book Page also raving, kicking off with an electrifying prologue. Readers will keep turning pages in desperate pursuit of the tension breaking relief that can only come from seeing the story to its conclusion. My goodness, that is an amazing, amazing review. Publishers Weekly saying a dark, inspired debut. Fans of Patricia Highsmith will definitely want to take note of this promising writer. Robin Wasserman, who we had on the show a few weeks ago, I'm losing track of time, but she was on, says, as unsettling as it is enthralling is a word we keep hearing. I love that. These violent delights will engulf you first in the intoxication of its obsession, then in its toxic consequences. Micah Nemerever's debut is a beautiful portrait of intimacy, desperation, and the damage that damaged hearts can cause. It shattered me. Ooh, I have goosebumps. Micah, what incredible praise you have earned with your beautiful book. Tell us what do you think is the most important, most vital part of writing a book that earns that kind of reaction, that earns that kind of praise? Tell us about that.
I I was definitely sort of like stunned and humbled by the fact that other people that this book resonated with other people in this way, because especially in like 2011, when I was just starting to contemplate the idea of writing this as a book, there weren't a lot of queer novels in the mainstream, and so I sort of imagined it as like, well, it could end up at a small press, which is a lovely thing to happen. But I sort of I had my sights set on like it's more of a niche title. This will be interesting to, a few readers maybe. And so like it really was stunning for me when it actually it was able to find a home at a big five publisher, which is there's been so much progress in terms of representation of
Mm.
queer voices in the literary world in like the last 9 years, and so it's a whole different world now, and I was just so grateful. Oh, yeah, it's been surreal and wonderful. I I don't presume to know exactly what leads to such nice words. What was really important for me as I was writing is these are characters who are deeply flawed and do terrible things. And but I was always writing from a place of deeply loving these people, for as uh, as incredibly flawed as they are. Like it's sort of a book about compassion and how I feel, yeah, I feel like even characters who are this profoundly flawed can be a vector for empathy, especially because there are aspects of of not only their anger but their trauma that many readers will have experienced themselves. And I feel like maybe that's why it resonates with people, is because they kind of recognize an echo of their own adolescent anger and loneliness in these characters. And it, for me at least, it was really cathartic to take those difficult parts of myself and sort of look at the worst characters that I had trouble when I was a teenager extending to myself. So it was, yeah, it's, I think that might be.
I love that. I love that. And I want to talk about so much of the things that you brought up. I also want to welcome my friend Judy Ginsburg-Sinsheimer, who just logged on from Vermont. She's quarantining out there, but she's actually a friend, a dear, dear, dear friend, and a neighbor of mine. And we live in a predominantly gay neighborhood in Boston. And we I'm also on the board of our little neighborhood library there. And for Pride Month, which is June in Boston, I was able to book all LGBTQ authors. And I just wanted to talk about what you said, that there's an increasing representation, and that is such an awesome, beautiful, exciting thing to see. So when I saw that your book, featured the love story between two men, I was so excited to hear that and to see that and to read that and to see that you had gotten, a publishing deal with, as you said, a big five at HarperCollins. And I was thrilled when your publicist pitched me. And I was thrilled when she told me that the buzz that you're getting, again, I gotta toot your horn a little more, Micah, because everyone from Oprah Magazine, Newsweek, and my hometown, Philadelphia Inquirer, special love for Philly, raving about this book, saying that it is a book that will change the literary landscape, an LGBTQ book of note, and a book of note for fall, a book of note for September, just raving about this book. And what I thought was really interesting, and you look pretty young, so you may not remember this, but when Brokeback Mountain came out, it was actually the same thing as what you said. They thought that the movie producers thought that this was going to be a niche film. This was going to be, of interest only to the LGBTQ audience. This was going to be at art house theaters, small theaters. And that was how they originally started marketing it, was to the LGBTQ audience. But what they realized was that the love story between those two men was a love story. And it doesn't ultimately matter whether it's two men, two women, whatever, it is a love story. And that was what resonated with that movie. And I remember reading an analysis of what made that movie successful. And it started to resonate with straight women. And then it went out to the larger audience. And soon it was playing in every AMC, Lowe's, and big theater across the country. And it sounds like it was almost that sort of an algorithm of what you were expecting. You thought this was going to be a niche book, but actually this book resonates, because who among us has not had that teenage angst? Who among us does not wish to extend compassion to that awkward younger self that we had? So thank you for writing this incredibly relatable, beautiful book and extending that compassion to your characters, that I think we all wish we could extend to ourselves. So that, and I can hear in your voice, and when you talk about them, your love for them and your care for them. And that seems to have come through on the page so beautifully. So kudos to you and to this work.
Thank you.
Yay. And actually, Judy, who's watching, has been an incredible ally for the LGBTQ community, was one of the first. She just retired as a therapist from MGH, Massachusetts General Hospital, where in the 80s, she was counseling AIDS patients, HIV patients. So she's been so incredible for the LGBTQ community. And Judy, I want to thank you for your wonderful work. And I can tell this book is of great interest to her. So Micah, as you were writing this book, how many revisions did it take you? Did you have one clear ending in mind? Did you have to, you said that you started it in 2011, then you scrapped it, you started again in 2013. Was it pretty clear from then and you just were polishing it, or did it change a whole lot?
I had to write kind of a bad draft before I could write a good draft. I do what they always tell you not to do. I edit as I go. That they always say, no, just pour it out. Let it be super bad. Like don't filter anything. I don't do that. I self-edited even the first draft pretty relentlessly. I had one vision of the ending that I ended up scrapping because I liked this newer idea of it better, and now it feels like it's the only way the book could have ended. So but I with the first draft, I knew very little about pacing is the big
Uh-huh.
thing that I had to fix in the second draft. Like I wanted to include all these details that weren't actually necessary to the plot, just because like I know and love the characters and their families so much, and I just wanted to include everything. And then when I read back through the first draft, it's like that there's good stuff in here, but a huge chunk of this has to go. So a fair bit of the first draft actually did survive to the second, and then the other half of it got basically written from scratch. And so it was two full drafts, but every scene in the book has been written at least 5 times. So it's because I'm a perfectionist, I think. So
Yes. And
yeah.
was that feedback coming from yourself where you're like, this isn't quite right? Or was it coming from your editor who was like, maybe consider this? What was that process like?
I did a lot of self-editing before I sent it out to agents. So it was fairly close to its final form by the time I started querying. I I read a lot of books that I admired, for things like pacing, especially. And also with books that I thought had kind of flawed pacing, I would like unpick them and be like, okay, what worked here? What didn't work here? So I really, a lot of it was studying my craft. A lot of it was, I have many lovely friends who read it and cheerleaded and gave feedback over the years. And so that was really helpful too. And yeah, for the second draft, I think that the thing I learned about how I need to do pacing, I don't believe in universal writing advice, but for me, pacing meant every single scene had to substantially develop character, advance the plot, or preferably both.
Yeah.
Um, and anything else, no matter how much I loved it, if it could not justify its presence in the story, it had to go. And that was painful,
Vicious.
but it was necessary.
Yes. Oh, vicious. I love it. Now, I've got to ask, what were the books that you read to study the art of pacing? Because pacing is so important, something I know I'm still working on to develop. What were they? Share us the secrets. Share with us what books you read to study that art.
One of them was well, I read a fair bit of Highsmith because she's a master of tension. So the aspect of the story that is sort of built on suspense and dread, I took a lot of inspiration from her. Strangers on a Train is a very tight, mean little book, and so I made mental notes about how she handled pacing. She was just very good at it, and I also studied a fair bit of like Hitchcock and other films in the suspense genre, to kind of get a sense for how they handled it. Um, on another on the other hand, one book that I read as I was starting to write the book, like I was about midway through the first draft, maybe, was The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and that was
Mhm.
interesting to me because like it has crime in it. It's also got like literary concerns in the way that my book sort of does. I literary is not my favorite phrase, but it's thinking about like really like it has philosophical elements in a similar way. And I thought the pacing in Secret History was really interesting because it pulls you along, but also that book is beefy. Like that is a big book. And I knew that mine was going to be a big book too, because like I was really mired in like gradual character development and things like that. I wanted it to be emotional suspense. And so it was interesting. It was good for me to see how you can maintain tension and pacing it and sort of emotional intensity in a book that is long. So that was
Mm.
really helpful for me, because yeah, I think that thing's a good 100 pages longer than TBD, which is not a short book. So that was really helpful. Those were a few of the influences I had.
Amazing. And so I just want to pause because what I think I just heard you say is that you studied Patricia Highsmith for pacing. And then if I'm not wrong, I just read a review comparing you to Patricia Highsmith. What was that like to receive that praise that you had, that your book is like hers, you having studied her pacing? That must have been quite a moment. Let us into that. Walk us through that.
It really was. It's like she's obviously a legend. Like she wrote very much the kinds of books that I'm interested in. Like I'm a little bit old fashioned. I like the mid-century of style of book where it's like it's a little genre agnostic. It's just like we're just telling a good story and focusing on the psychology of the characters in this really interesting way. And so it was very cool and again very humbling to be able to draw comparisons to this author who was a huge influence.
Yeah, totally. What an incredible moment and so deserved. Amazing, amazing. One question that we get on here a lot is because we have such an incredible, passionate audience of mystery lovers, mystery writers, aspiring writers. And one question we get a lot is how do you, because you mentioned you had the circle of friends that have provided critique, lovingly so. How do you find people that can provide you critique that is, doesn't destroy you, but is valuable? And how do you receive that in a way that you're like, this resonates, but this doesn't? How do you know when you're being stuck in ego versus, being stubborn versus being receptive? How do you manage that?
It was kind of a happy accident that I ended up with so many lovely writer friends. Like we a lot of us were in writing communities on LiveJournal as teenagers and then just kind of grew up together kind of. And so
Oh,
we bonded over writing back in the day. And it's like, but for me, they are friends first and they're just all lovely, supportive people. That was really helpful because we all kind of yeah, we grew up together, we've matured together. And as far as taking constructive criticism, I I sort of learned how to do that. I did a master's in art history and I wrote an academic thesis for that. And academia requires kind of a thick skin because people will ask you like really pointed questions. You have to think on the fly how to defend your points and everything. And it's 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 a little bit of a crucible.
yeah, I'm
And coming
sweating
out of
just
that,
thinking of it.
it's yeah, it was intense. I loved it and don't think I would ever have the energy to do it again. But it really built up a thick skin for me and a knowledge that if I'm choosing to keep something in a piece of writing, I have to be able to justify it. And so I basically maintained awareness of what I was trying to do with each element of the story. And if people came at it from an angle where they weren't really buying what I was selling, like they just didn't see it as trying to achieve that at all, I,
Mhm.
I just kind of was like, okay, that this isn't for them so much. But but in situations where they're like, I see what you're trying to do. Here's what works. Here's what doesn't. I definitely took a step back and was like, I unpicked what I saw in my own writing and tried like I tried to see where they were coming from and decide whether or not I agreed. And this was a really good process with my editor at Harper, Erin Wicks, because she's very insightful. She zeroes in on details and interrogates you in a very kind way. And so we had a lot of really interesting back and forth. I Especially when it's in good faith and someone also wants the story to be the best it can be. It like I don't take the the negative parts personally because I know that they're coming from a good place and that they're on my side. And so that really helps. Like yeah, it's cool.
Oh,
I
I
really
love that. And I love that you had, that you got this support both from your editor and from your writing community, or as you said, friends first.
Mhm.
I love that. Tell us about the title. Did this arrive as a stroke of genius? Were you like, yes? Or was this number 101? Tell us about the title. These
Oh
violent
gosh.
delights.
It's it had a working title for most
Ooh,
of the
I'm
writing
leaning
process.
in.
It was so bad. I don't think I can admit to it publicly. It was just a bad title. I queried with the title, and then my agent Caroline, who is also very lovely and diplomatic, she was like, so let's talk about the title. Are you married to the title? And I was like, no, I actually don't like the title at all. Let's do something about this. And so we kind of brainstormed a few ideas, and then I remembered this line from Romeo and Juliet, that has the it goes, I think, these violent delights have violent ends. Um,
Mm.
and so it it really kind of encapsulated the spirit of the book. I was worried it was too dramatic. So I said to Caroline, is this title too much? And she was like, no, no, use it. So we used it. But I was skeptical on it at first just because I was worried it was like quoting Romeo and Juliet in a book title. Like, is that too dramatic? But it's a book about traumatic teenagers. I think if you're ever going to do it, this is probably how to do it. But
This is it. This is your moment. Exactly. Now, were there any titles that ended up on the cutting room floor from the brainstorm where you're like, oh, I kind of was kind of missing that one? Or you
um,
knew it when you heard it? That was it.
I think I knew that was it, and I was just in denial because I was worried people wouldn't like it. And then everybody liked it, and I'm very happy about that.
Ah,
Um,
oh, wait a minute. Did you say that your agent's name is Caroline? Because we have a comment from a Caroline who says you immediately came up with these violent delights, and I couldn't believe you had such a good title in your back pocket. It never happens that way.
Hi,
Yay!
Caroline.
She says, yes, exactly. She says that she said that you were holding this in your back pocket. Is this true,
I
Micah? Were you
was.
holding this in your back pocket? Tell us about the
I
gorgeous
was.
cover. Where did you work with the team and sort of say, I'm coming, I want violent delights and angst and teenage angst, and they were like, here it is, and you were like, yes, that's it, or was it like, let's revise this a little? Tell us about that.
It was a really good collaborative process. Like they came with an initial cover draft, and then there was some back and forth about like what kind of a tone we wanted the cover to strike, things like
Ooh,
that. And
yeah.
they asked me to send samples of other book covers that I've liked, and uh, and so after doing that, they kind of came back with this revised design, that is, I think, basically what the book ended up looking like. And it's, yeah, it's so just kind of discussing what I envisioned the tone of the tone being conveyed to be, and sort of like the necessary businessy side is like, okay, how can we hit that tone but also it's saleable, which is, and I definitely understand that. I was raised by graphic artists, so it that there are, yeah, that there are concerns in terms of like you want it to be eye catching in a very specific way, and
Mm,
so it was a really cool process to kind of see how sort of artistic concerns and marketing concerns are synthesized through graphic design, and it was a really
yes.
cool experience. And I absolutely love the cover that we ended up with. It's gorgeous. And
It's gorgeous. It's so beautiful.
yeah,
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love that you were so involved in the process and that you were listened to and you were honored and they
yeah.
really took what you thought and what you felt and what it sounds like a really collaborative sort of ideal experience, which is so heartwarming to hear. Micah, tell us what your writing practice is like. I mean, do you rise with the sun or are you a late night owl? Do the words flow easily? Do they just sort of pour out of you? Or is it like a Hemingway-esque head pounding on the desk, vodka pounding, clawing your way through the desert for every word? What's it look like?
It's another thing I do that you're not supposed to do is I don't write every day. I write a couple days a week and try to dedicate as much of the day as possible to writing. I tend to start at like 9 a.m. and work till about 4. So it's almost like a 9 to 5 gig for me. I do not slam vodka as I do it. I do sometimes forget to eat lunch. That's my unhealthy habit. I have to keep like cashews next to my chair so that I don't pass out. But it
Cashews are my snack too. I love
they're good.
cashews.
They're so
So good.
nutritious. There's so much protein in there. And
And
so it
magnesium, a good source of magnesium
yes,
as well. Yeah.
yes. And so yeah, it's that's for me, it on a good day, it flows. And it isn't stopped from flowing by the fact that I stop every few sentences to look back at what I've got and tinker with it. Like that feels like part of the flow. It doesn't feel like speed bumps for me. So it definitely works for me. I don't think it would work for everybody.
Mm.
But yeah, on a really good day, it's like on a really good day, it kind of feels like I have dissolved and the writing is just coming directly out of me. That's it's a hell of a high. And I
It
think it's what
is.
kind of keeps you writing, to have those moments of flow, to feel like you're really doing something, that to be very dramatic about it. It's like you're doing something that makes you feel sublime, and
Yes. Ooh,
it's
yes.
it's so that's a good day.
Mm.
On days when I'm feeling kind of blocked, I've learned and keep learning, because I refuse to believe it, that when I feel like writing would be pulling teeth, I shouldn't try because it will just make me sad. So I kind of I when I handle that situation wisely, I go off and I don't try to make words, but I sort of I let the problem I'm trying to solve percolate. Like I identify what it is I'm stuck on, and then I just try to process it. And once I've
Mm.
processed it, I very often wake up in the morning having processed it in my sleep or something, and then I can get back on the horse. But it's I've had to kind of learn to give myself credit for, like, writing is like 80% thinking about the story, and it is. And
Yes.
yeah,
Totally.
so
I've been watching that documentary, I don't know if tell me if anyone else has as well. The true crime documentary "I'll Be Gone in the Dark" about Michelle McNamara, who wrote the Golden State Killer book. And her husband Patton Oswalt was talking about it, and he was like, he himself having written books as well, he was like, people will tell you that they need 5 hours to write. That is a lie. They do not need 5 hours. They need 4 hours to sit there and perseverate and 1 hour to write, but it's all part of the process. And I was like, I've never felt so seen before. Thank you,
oh,
Patton Oswalt. That's so true. 80% of it is thinking about it, but that's a necessary part of the process.
it is.
Yeah,
And it's important to give yourself credit for that too.
totally. Micah, what's your favorite scene from your new book?
Oh gosh,
Without giving anything away.
I'm very proud of the prologue. I feel like it sets the tone in a good way. I always struggle with beginnings, so it took me a long time to get it into shape where I felt like it worked as a
Mm.
beginning. I'm more of an endings person. I think writers are often you're either naturally into beginnings or you're naturally into endings, and I am absolutely not a beginning person. So it took a lot of work, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And then at the other end of the spectrum, like the ending, like the last 50 pages or so, I those came fairly easily because I was able to take all these strings that all these threads that I had put through the whole book and kind of bring them together, and be able to find the climax for the story that I had been working toward the whole time. And so it was really good to be able to have that moment of catharsis, both for the story itself and for, like, I was able to bring it all together. And I hope I stuck the landing I felt for myself like I did. So I hope it feels that way for readers too. But
Well, based on this amazing, all these gorgeous reviews and blurbs that you are getting, I'm going to say you stuck the landing.
I
This
hope
is
so.
amazing. And I just, what I think is so unique and so special about you, Micah, is that you have such a reverence for the process and such a tenderness toward the process, toward the writing, toward the craft, a reverence and a respect and a tenderness that's really heartwarming. It's actually like brought tiny tears to my eyes.
Oh,
It's been just so heartwarming and so heart filling. And I love to hear you talk about it because it's again with reverence, with respect, and with this gentle sort of tenderness about this incredible craft that you're dedicating yourself to. And so many people, I think, just gloss over that and get straight to the productivity of it or the pages or whatever. But you are really taking time and creating space to honor that. And I love that. I absolutely, I love that. I love that.
thank you.
And I know you have your book launch party to get to, and you have to get ready for that soon. But I just want to end by saying, is there anything that you wish I'd asked that you would want to share with us today? And if not, what is one thing that you would like readers to leave your book to finish that last page? What do you want them to feel? What do you want them to have learned?
That's a good question. I my ideal my ideal reader reaction would be that they emerge with the same love of the characters that I have, because I really it's um and kind of a sense of moral tragedy. Like it's another old-fashioned thing. As I love stories about moral struggle and fatal flaws and everything. So I want them to have compassion for these characters and the way they have experienced moral failure in a way that I hope is sort of relatable, even as, most people have not gone down that path, hopefully. Um, and and I will admit, like, it sounds mean, but every time someone says that the book really messed them up, it makes me so happy.
Ooh,
Like it's
so very nice seeming Micah has a dark side. He's twisting that knife, and when you tell him that it has messed you up, it brings him joy. This
in
is
the
good to
sense
know
that
about
it
you,
also
Micah.
messed me up. It messed me up too, and so I'm like, yes, I don't have to go through this by myself.
Yay. Oh my gosh. What a perfect note to end on. Gail from Massachusetts saying, thank you so much. All the best in your writing career to you. Oh, Gail, a top community member here at the Mighty Blaze. Thank you for that. Thank you, everyone who's watching. Thank you for your presence. Micah, it has been such a joy and such a heartwarming, heart-filling moment to share with you today. So thank you for coming on and thank you for spreading your light. Thank you for your beautiful book. Again, I'm so excited to see a book with two male leads, a love story, and the incredible, incredible reviews you are getting from Publishers Weekly, Philadelphia Inquirer, freaking Newsweek, Oprah Magazine. I mean, this is amazing and speaks to the fact that you have crafted a book that matters and, as Oprah Magazine said, is changing the literary landscape. Yes! Congratulations. We wish you all the best. And please come back and talk with us next time your next book comes out.
Thank you so much.
And thank you again to all our mighty mystery fans for joining us. We're getting thumbs up on Facebook. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you for all your love and support for Micah, for the book, and for the show. I will see you back here at 6 p.m. talking to Sophie Hannah with her new Hercule Poirot book, sanctioned by the Agatha Christie estate and family. Can't wait to hear about that. Meanwhile, we are sharing links to Micah's book with our very special partnership with bookshop.org, supporting independent bookstores. Read this book, and I'll see you next time here on A Mighty Blaze.
Thank you.